Hello and welcome back to the Mini Expanse. My name's Kieran and today I'm going to be showing you how to do a simple yet effective colour scheme for Space Wolves. So here we've just got one of the push fit intercessors glued onto an empty paint pot, and we're going to start by priming him with Colour Forge's Wolf King Grey. And we're going to do all of the priming, including the zenithal, through rattle cans. And it's going to be a good shade colour for us to start with. Goes on nice and smooth and effective. So let's go. So it's now completed. You can see we've got a nice smooth coat over the entire model, and I concentrated on making sure it gets into the parts that would be in the shadow, so everything that you would see from below. Now we're going to take Army Painter's Wolf Grey, which is a slightly lighter shade, and this is going to be a zenithal prime that we do from above. And you can now see that it's gone on nice and smooth. We can see the shadows are still Wolf King Grey between the legs, in behind the backpack, under the shoulder pads, and it gives us this nice transition and lighten to start with the rest of our work. So now we want to add some definition into the model itself. What I'm going to do is take some Drakenhof Nightshade, and this is just a bottle of matte medium and water that I've mixed up. And we'll use that to thin it down. So it's kind of like a homemade Lamian medium. Definitely works the same, but it's a lot cheaper. I'll maybe do a video on that later to see how you make it. So I'm just using a pipette here to control how much I've got. This way I can mix it in accurate ratios for replicating through a whole army later on that I'm in the process of building. So we're going to take an equal amount of the Drakenhof Nightshade and of this matte medium and water mix. So we're just going to mix that all together and then apply it over the entire model, covering all of the armor panels, and in this case it'll just be the entire model because it'll also give us some nice definition and help us figure out the shapes for the gun and the auspex that he's also carrying. So it should also be noted that in that matte medium and water mix I've also added flow improver and fluid retarder. The flow improver helps it flow better, fluid retarder slows down the drying process. It just means that when you add it onto the model, it'll flow into the recesses easier than the normal shade will, and it also won't pull as much on the raised surfaces. Now you will see here on the top of the head it does pull a little bit, but what we can do is just wick that away with the brush and just move it to another part of the model. And we just keep doing that over the entire thing, moving the shade where we want it and lifting it off the raised parts. Now later on you'll also see that it starts pulling towards the bottom just because of that extra flow, and again we just wick that away, and once it's dry you've got a nicely shaded and kind of zenithaled armour to start all your detail work with. So now we're going to start on the shoulder pads, and I'm using Pro Acryl's Yellow Ochre and Burnt Red as the base coats for my shoulders, and the reason for this is the intercessors that I'm doing up for my force are going to be black mains, and the red is just going to be the typical red and black pack markings that you would get on grey hunters. So I'm going to do them as the same kind of markings for these guys as well. So red just going on the right shoulder pad, yellow on the left, and just make sure that you get a good smooth coat on each one. Potentially need to do an extra coat after this, but these Pro Acryl paints do cover really well. And again, I'm just taking my time getting around the edge first, filling it in right up to the edge, and then fill in the gap in the middle. So next I'm going to take Contrast Black Templar, and this is going to be for all the soft joints in the armour. Again, just to break it up, I don't want the whole thing to be the kind of blue-grey of Space Wolves. Just adds a little bit of visual interest. It's very easy to do. It just takes the one coat and that's it. It gives us the definition, the shade, a little bit of a highlight, and we'll just start here in the legs and move around just to all the soft joints, back of the knees and the inside of the elbows as well. And here you see the first couple of coats are down. Got the shoulders done, the soft joints done, and I'm just going to go back over the shoulders now with that second coat just to reinforce it a little bit because we've still got some of the blue showing through here. And we're also going to take the red while we've got it and do the purity seal. So here we're going to use Warpaint Fanatic Greedy Gold, and that's going to go over the Aquila on the chest, and later on I'll use it for the trim on both the shoulder pads. We're also going to use Plate Mail Metal from the same series, and this will just be used to base coat the Auspex, the metallic parts of the gun, and any of the other trim that might need it. And there we go, another couple of base coats down, and as you can see the shoulders are done as well. Now unfortunately I didn't capture this on camera, but I've also gone and painted the casing on the bolter red and the hand grip under the front of it grey in preparation for the next steps. So the hand grip is going to get a coating of Contrast Black Templar just to darken it up and add a little bit of shading into it. And now we're going to go back to Pro Acrylic Green, and this is going to be for the eye lenses. So just take your time, get a nice fine brush, just thin the paint pretty well, and just touch it into the gap there, and it'll fill in the area for the eye lenses. And we're just doing the same thing on the Auspex screen as well. As you can see, nice solid base coat, and we'll do a little bit of highlighting later. So we're going to take Ivory now, again from Pro Acryl, and just do the purity seal on his hip. So now we've got all the base coats done, we can move on to the shading. We've got Null Oil, Agrax Earthshade, both from Citadel. I'm going to start with the Null Oil and put it on all the silver parts to begin with. So start here on the casing of the gun and just work our way around. Especially here around the hand, just be nice and careful, try not to mess up the armour we've done. We can move on to Agrax Earthshade and put that on the gold parts, like the Aquila here, and just make sure you load it up pretty well, just to get that contrast, and the same again on the purity seal on his hip. Now I'm going to show you something here that didn't work for me. I tried to use the Agrax Earthshade to pin shade this shoulder pad, and I did that first by wetting it along the edge, and then trying to touch the shade into that wet area. The idea being that it would run along the edge and you wouldn't end up with a big messy tide mark. Unfortunately, it didn't work for me. I then tried to fix it by washing the whole shoulder pad with the Agrax, and it also didn't work, as you can see the mess here. But we'll fix that later on. In the meantime, while it's drying, I'm going to move on and highlight the lenses. So what I'm using here is bright yellow green from Pro Acryl, and I'm just going to touch it into the middle of each of the eye lenses just with a very fine brush, and this just gives it a nice glow effect without too much hassle. As you can see, nice, simple, but effective. And this is the paint that I used, if you're ever looking for it. So the next one, we're going to use Burnt Sienna on the leather pouches on the back of the belt. And this is just a nice reddish brown colour, works well for leather. And I'll shade that off camera with some Agrax Earthshade. And it can just be highlighted up again with the exact same colour. You get a very effective leather colour, as you'll see here at the back. So I'm going to let this dry at this stage so that I can then go back and fix up the shoulder pad later on. Now I'm going to base coat the base with a dark warm grey, and while I'm doing that you can see that I have recoated the shoulder pads. Now what I've done after I coated the shoulder pad, you can see it here, is I've then just gone and washed it with Contrast Iandin Yellow. And it actually came out pretty well. I'm quite proud with how that shoulder pad came out. So we're going to use Vallejo texture paste for the base. And you just want a good synthetic brush, nice and clean. I've just taken a lump out of here, and then you just carefully spread it around the base. Try not to get it too far up the feet of your model. There's nothing wrong with getting it to touch the base because it just looks like they're standing in muddy ground. And then just wipe your finger along the base just to get any of the excess that's hanging over, because you don't want it drying. It can be very annoying to take off later on, especially when you go to paint the base rims. So just wipe it off on your finger or your thumb, and you can also quickly just tamp down any bits that you think are a bit too high. So then we're going to paint the base rim, and we're just using matte black from the Army Painter. Just any black paint will do, and just make sure it's well thinned and just give it a nice smooth coat all the way around. Just take your time not to get it up on your texture base. And there we have it, almost done. You could stop at this point, it's pretty well done, it's based, and yeah, I'd be quite happy to field the whole army like this. But I'm just gonna do a little bit more with the base, and this is how I do my snow effects. So I've got soft flake snow from Woodland Scenics, we've got a product from Secret Weapon, who unfortunately don't exist anymore, but you can get this from other retailers, and it's ground up crushed glass. And again, this is Secret Weapon realistic water, but it is basically just a gloss medium, and you can get that from any art supply store, and it probably costs a lot less. So we're going to mix these, and this is just a sheet of baking parchment. And the reason I'm using that is I can mix everything on it, it's not going to stick too much to it, and when I'm done, all the mess can just be rolled up and put in the bin. So I think I go with about half a teaspoon of the powdered snow, and probably about the same, if not, no, about a quarter of a teaspoon of the crushed glass. I'm going to add on the realistic water afterwards, mix everything together, but before I do that, I just want to make sure that the powdered snow and the glass are kind of mixed first. Now try not to get your fingers in amongst all of this. The crushed glass will irritate you very badly if you get it in between your fingers and the creases of your thumb and that. But we just mix it up with a little cocktail stick, or I think this is a bamboo skewer that I've got for model making. And then once you're satisfied, just drip some of the realistic water over the top of it and start mixing it. This is a bit of a back and forward process. You can mix it up, see how you think it looks. If you use less of the medium, it's more of a thick powdery snow. If you use more of the medium, it gets to a bit more of a slushy consistency. And I'm looking for somewhere in between. As you can see here, it is getting a bit more to the slushy side of things. And we're going to just take the toothpick and just start pressing it onto the base. Now, you do want to leave some of the texture paste visible, because you don't want the whole thing to be snow. And once you're satisfied with your placement, just take some of the powdered snow, sprinkle it over the top just to add a little bit of that extra fluffiness to it, and then we're going to move on to some tufts. So I like these ones from Space Wolves, the frozen tufts from the Army Painter. Little dab of super glue onto the bottom just while you're using your tweezers, tiniest dab, and then just place a couple of them around the base just for that extra little bit of interest. And there we go, it's all based up and ready to go on the table. So as you can see, very quick, effective scheme that you could replicate easily across an entire army, and that's going to be my next project. But I'll catch you for a different video next time, and thanks very much for watching.